this video, I'm attempting the impossible for Sandrone's sake, and apparently for my own. She's one of the most fascinating characters in Genshin Impact, especially leading up to Nodcry, but our first impressions of her aren't so great. If you don't know anything about her lore yet, don't worry, you're in the right place. I'll break it all down for you. During La Senora's funeral in the Winter Nights Lazo teaser, Sandrone openly mocks Pulcinella, Pantalone, and Arlecchino's banter as laughable. While the other Fatui Harbingers close their eyes in respect for La Senora, Sandrone does not. Depending on how much you like La Senora, it might feel outright disrespectful, or deserved. Shout out to the Venti mains. Then there's the fact that some characters compare her to Il Dottore, arguably the worst of the Harbingers. And that's not exactly a flattering association. So here's the question I'm wrestling with today. Can Sandrone be forgiven? Can you forgive Sandrone? Or is she too far gone? And because no redemption arc is complete without stakes, I present to you a challenge. If I can't convince you that Sandrone is redeemable, then I have to main the worst character in the entire game for a whole day. That's right, I have to main Yae Miko. You don't understand how painful this is for me. Back in version 3.2 when Layla first released, I pulled on Yae's banner hoping to see 6 Layla. She was my favorite 4-star at the time and still is. But after 100 pulls, I didn't get a single Layla. Instead, I got not 1, not 2, but 3 Yae Mikos. C2 Yae Miko in 100 pulls. It still haunts me to this day. I respect her lore, truly. But like a true kitsune, Yae Miko seemed to enjoy tormenting me, and the mental damage has been done. If you want to traumatize me further, feel free to comment C2 down below. But today's video isn't about my suffering. It's about Sandrone. Despite everything we know about her, I believe she's a character who can be redeemed. And if I can prove that, if I can make you believe it too, then I might just be able to escape my foxy fate. Quick disclaimer, I don't think every character needs to be redeemable, looking directly at you, Il Dottore, but I thought this would be a fun challenge. I also want to be free from my Yae Miko trauma. But first, a word from today's sponsor. Today's video is sponsored by Top Up Live. Listen, if you're tired of paying full price for in-game currencies, Top Up Live has your back. It's a third-party top-up center that lets you purchase your favorite in-game goodies at a discounted rate compared to the official stores. Why pay more when you can pay less and get the same goodies, right? Just scroll through their insane list of supported games. Seriously, you'll be shocked at how many popular titles are on there. And here's the best part. With state-of-the-art security measures, you can safely grab your Genesis crystals or other in-game currencies without logging in. I'll show you exactly how it works. It's fast, easy, and super secure. First, find your game. For example, I'm picking Genshin Impact. You can also check out their guaranteed character bundles and discounted top-up rates. Next, enter your UID and server. Click pay and boom! Genesis crystals delivered straight to your account. I saved 25% compared to the default Genshin top-up portal. That means more Primogems for those future Nodcry characters because we all know we'll be pulling hard for them. Use the link in the description and pin comment down below to try out Top Up Live today. And use my code MIN for an extra 12% off your orders. Thank you so much Top Up Live for sponsoring today's video. All the Fatui Harbingers in Genshin Impact are inspired by characters from the Commedia dell'arte, an early form of professional Italian theater that flourished across Europe between the 16th and 18th centuries. These characters were exaggerated archetypes representing fixed social roles. Foolish old men, cunning servants, boastful soldiers, etc. They're basically theatrical versions of real societal figures. Sandrone in particular is based on the traditional Sandrone character, a clever, crude, and cunning peasant who acts as a voice for the oppressed, forever hungry, mistreated, and surviving through trickery. Over time, he was joined by his wife Polonia in 1840, and later their son forming the Pavronica family. And here's the detail that makes this even more interesting. These characters were originally performed as puppets. Sandrone as a puppet with a puppet wife? That couldn't possibly be foreshadowing anything in Genshin, right? Sandrone, codename Marionette, is the 7th of the 11 Fatui Harbingers. Believe it or not, one of her earliest appearances actually predates the Winter Nights Lazo trailer. She's first mentioned all the way back in version 1.1 in Tartaglia's Character Tales teaser. In the video, we meet a Fatui agent named Javert, who views the Fatui Harbingers as lofty, untouchable figures. He recalls just one direct encounter with Sandrone, when she scolded him as a nervous new recruit. Our very first impression of Sandrone is her reprimanding a lower-ranking Fatui member, and honestly, Things only go downhill from there. To this day, we only have 3 in-game voice lines about her. Just 3. But even those give us a surprisingly clear picture. According to Arlecchino, Tartaglia, and Wanderer, here's what we know. She's reclusive and completely obsessed with her research. All 3 characters agree. Sandrone is practically glued to her lab. Arlecchino says she rarely appears in public, so much so that most Fatui officers haven't even seen her. Tartaglia mentions she's always engrossed in her research, and Wanderer confirms she cares for nothing outside of her work. Arlecchino says that unlike Dottore, who multiplies himself to be present everywhere all at once, Sandrone stays hidden, likely in some isolated lab, fiercely guarding her inventions. I want to give my own interpretation of this. So this kind of seclusion might suggest not only pride, but also paranoia, a refusal to let anyone else into her world, or maybe her grief. Sandrone is harsh, hostile, and just difficult to be around. Tartaglia admits every time he sees her, it feels like she's ready to murder him. Wanderer doesn't hold back either. He flat out says she has a terrible personality. Together, these comments paint Sandrone as someone who's deeply intolerant of distractions and dismissive of people she doesn't deem intellectually worthy. Their comments basically reveal her superiority complex. Sandrone is ambitious, but may be a little insecure. Wanderer throws another jab. Despite her obsession, Sandrone produced a copious amount of garbage and only managed to rank 1 spot below him. It's harsh, but the subtext is fascinating. It suggests Sandrone's output doesn't match her ambition. She might over-engineer, chase impossible ideals, or waste time in pursuit of perfection. But she continues, maybe driven not just by intellect, but possibly by the desperate need to prove herself in the high-stakes world of Teyvat. In short, Sandrone is brilliant but volatile, a recluse with a superiority complex. And yet, this strange mix of genius, isolation, and emotional distance might be the very thing that makes her story so compelling. Not to mention, in the recent Non-Cry Prelude Archon quest of version 5.8, we learn that some of Sandrone's subordinates are actually automatons. The implication is that she either built them herself or converted humans into mechanical servants. Either way, it's equal parts chilling and incredibly cool. These voice lines give us the clearest picture we have of Sandrone so far, and it's not a flattering one. She comes across as intensely private, emotionally distant, and extremely unfriendly. Her entire life appears to revolve around mechanical and technological research. And while there's no denying she's smart, her unstable emotions and need for perfection might be holding her back. She rarely interacts with others, and when she does, the encounters are marked by hostility or cold indifference. Her reputation suffers as a result. Sandrone seems to embody the archetype of the mad scientist, a brilliant mind, isolated by choice, haunted by obsession, and quietly resentful of a world that doesn't understand her. At this point, I actually started to feel a little bad for Sandrone. Being misunderstood by the world is already a pretty painful path. But then I remembered something that made me stop and think, oh, right, she might have actually done some pretty awful things. It definitely doesn't help my case. I can feel Yaimiko breathing down my neck, but we have to talk about it anyways. Sandrone is heavily implied to be involved in the Fontaine World quest Questioning Melusine and Answering Machine. In the quest, a traveler and Paimon help a Melusine named Telochard and a robot named Curved investigate the disappearance of Sir Arthur. Their search uncovers a web of conspiracy involving treasure hoarders, the Fatui, and the legacy of Dr. Mosso Lombroso, the scientist who created Curve. The story reaches its climax at Mosso's secret underwater lab. To avoid capture, Jenk, a key conspirator, blows up the lab, destroying Curve in the process. Curve sacrifices itself to save the traveler, Paimon, and Telochard. Later, Jenk is found inside the Opera Epiclese, restrained, with his tongue cut out and his mind broken. Euphrasia suggests this was either a punishment from his backer or a twisted act of remorse over Curve's death. And here's where Sandrone comes in. It's strongly implied she was the harbinger behind all of this. She took an interest in Mosso's research, and it was her network that made contact with Jenk. The letter found with Jenk appears to have been written by the harbinger herself, not a subordinate, suggesting she knew exactly what was happening. Now, we don't know for sure if Sandrone gave the order to cut out Jenk's tongue and torture him, or if she carried it out herself. But she was still involved and very much aware of everything that had happened. If she really did have Jenk's tongue cut out, then Wanderer's terrible personality comment might be spot on. And yeah, that definitely doesn't help my case. But hey, I'm still holding out on a hope that I won't have to main Yae Miko just yet.
Alright, amuse me.
The dialogue in the world quest describes the culprit as a harbinger interested in machine intelligence. While Il Dottore does fit that description, especially with his focus on Conry and tech, there's actually someone who fits it even better: Sandrone. Her entire identity revolves around machines, automatons, and artificial life. And here's where things get even more interesting. Because Sandrone might not just work with machines, she might be one herself. But we'll get to that. Sandrone is always seen accompanied by a modified ruin machine, but what's even more interesting is how she herself looks. Aside from her color scheme, her appearance closely resembles Catherine, the automaton who works at every branch of the Adventurers Guild. Given Sandrone's obsession with automatons, one of my favorite theories is that she created the Catherines, modeling them after her own form. Fun fact, this was actually one of the very first Genshin Theory videos I ever made. A little bit of Min lore for you. And here's something else to consider. The headquarters of the Adventurers Guild is in Snezhnaya, right where the Fatui are based, which makes this theory feel even more possible. But it gets creepier. In the Song of the Welkin Moon teaser, we finally see Sandrone, and on her back is a giant key. Meanwhile, every Catherine model has a visible keyhole at the back of their necks. Is Sandrone the master key that controls them all? Or is she one of them? That key on her back looks like a wind-up key, and for a wind-up doll to function, someone has to twist the key, just like a marionette needs a puppeteer. So that begs the question, if Sandrone is the puppet, who is pulling the strings? Sandrone's title is Marionette. She's a puppet. In the Commedia dell'arte, the original Sandrone was a clever, crude peasant, someone who spoke for the mistreated and hungry, always using tricks to survive. Later, he was joined by his outspoken wife Polonia and their son Scorgiguelo. Together, they formed the Pavronica family, and they were portrayed as literal puppets. So, if the Fatui marionette we see is meant to be Polonia, then who is the true Sandrone behind it all? I think I found the theory that might actually save me from this challenge and from having to main Yae Miko for an entire day. It all connects back to the Netsusenkreuz world quest, which I've done 2 full analysis videos on. I highly recommend playing through the quests if you haven't already. This theory centers on Alain Guillotine, a historical figure from 400 to 500 years ago. He was a gifted inventor, a former member of the Netsusenkreuz Institute, a Marechaussee hunter, and later the founder of the Fontaine Research Institute of Kinetic Energy Engineering. Alain created the ARC system, the clockwork mecha, and pioneered what we might now call artificial intelligence. Many of his creations are still used in Fontaine today. Alain and his sister Marianne were orphaned and raised at the Netsusenkreuz Institute, alongside future scholars like René de Petrichor and Jacob Ingold, who they eventually became friends with. Marianne became a kind and just-driven officer, while Alain immersed himself in the world of machines. As adults, they fought against the Netsusenkreuz Ordo after it turned toward dangerous abyssal experiments involving dissolving people and consciousness merging. Marianne later died trying to stop them, leaving Alain devastated and alone. He withdrew from the world and focused entirely on his research. According to legend, Alain never published any of his final work, but something was built. Something hidden away in his isolated workshop. And that something might have been Sandrone. Sandrone bears a strong resemblance to the only known image of Marianne as a child. Her code name is Marionette. Her obsession with machines is unmatched. It's possible that Alain, unable to cope with his sister's death and the loss of his friends, built a mechanical surrogate modeled after her, either to bring her back, preserve her memory, or fulfill a vision they once shared. That puppet could be the Sandrone we see today. But here's where it gets darker. The ruin machine that constantly follows her might not just be a guard. It might be Alain himself, his consciousness transferred into the machine to silently guide and protect her. Or consider the possibility that Alain might be controlling them both from far away. This is where the Commedia dell'arte comes back into play. The original Sandrone was the clever patriarch of the Pavronica family, joined by his outspoken wife Polonia and the mischievous son Scorgiguelo. In Genshin, what if this puppet trio has been been reimagined. Reimagined because I don't want to imply that Align sees his own sister as a wife. That'd be so weird. Align would be the true Sandrone, the mastermind hardened by grief and intellect. The ruin machine is his vassal. And the harbinger we call Sandrone is Polonia, the visible puppet on the stage, carrying out a mission she may not fully understand. This reimagined puppet family, Align, the ruin machine, and Sandrone mirrors the original trio from the Commedia dell'arte. It's theatrical, tragic, but also deeply human. True Genshin Impact backstory fashion, right? Please agree. So here's the heart of the theory. Sandrone may be a puppet or artificial being created by Align Guillotine in the aftermath of his sister Marianne's death. Align Guillotine could be the consciousness inside the modified rune machine, or he might be controlling both the machine and Sandrone from somewhere far behind the scenes. Sandrone may come across as cold, cruel, and impossible to reach, but what if that's only the surface? What if beneath the harsh exterior is a creation shaped by grief, obsession, and a legacy she never chose? If she truly is a puppet built from loss, then her story isn't one of villainy, it's one of tragedy. And like all great tragedies, it leaves room for redemption. So maybe she's not beyond saving. Maybe she's just waiting for someone to wind the key and set her free. And if I've convinced you, even just a little bit, that Sandrone is redeemable after all, then I've done my job. Which means I don't have to main Yae Miko for a day. If you enjoyed today's video, please leave a like and subscribe to save me from Yae Miko. Thank you so much Top Up Live for sponsoring today's video. I'm your Leafy Lore Keeper Minslif, and I read the Genshin Impact lore so that you don't have to.